Okay, afternoon everyone. Um, Hopefully you can hear me alright. I'm going to make a start. I think I say we've got 9 concurrent viewers at the minute, but um, while I'm making a start, can you do what a couple of other people have done? And in the chat window, can you just let me know who you are and what course you're on? Um, Mainly, it's just to give me an idea of what level people are at. I know some of you I've sort of either taught or some of you I've not taught. So it just gives me an idea of whether you're first years or second years or whatever it is you're currently doing for a course at the minute. Anyway, while that's going on, just to give you an idea of what I'm going to be talking about this afternoon. Obviously, if you're a first year, I'm under the impression that you're already being talked to about things like UCAS and some things like writing personal statements and other things like that. So this obviously relates to that. Some of you, if you're a second year, it might be a point where you're actually thinking about what you're going to be doing after the completion of your second year, obviously thinking about September. So this afternoon I want to talk about 2 things. I want to talk about the HND Computing, which is what we run in the computing department at college, and I want to have a chat with year 1 and year 2s about student finance. Now, I don't know whether you've even thought about it or considered what the implications of it are, but we need to make sure that you're fully aware of what's going on and how it's going to affect you in terms of what your expectations are and what's going on and things like that. So we'll get on with it and we'll see where we go from there. So most of you are on a level 3 course. I don't know if we've got any access students. I did invite access students as well, but I don't know whether we've got any or not. But whether you're doing A levels, whether you're doing BTEC level 3 or whatever it is, your journey in higher education is basically split across 3 years. Your first year on HE is the HNC in computing. The HNC is worth 120 credits. Then the second year is the HND in computing, which is worth another 120 credits. Now, so to get the HND, you have to have 240 credits, which basically is your first year plus your second year. There is the option after the HND to do another final year, which is what we call a top-up year, and the top-up turns your HND into a Bachelor of Science degree, and that's your final 120 credits, which adds up to 360. 120 times 3 is 360, and that means you come away with a Bachelor of Science degree, and that's a degree that we do with the University of Central Lancs. So I'm not going to worry about the degree because it's for those of you who are coming onto HE maybe from this September. It's 2 years away anyway. But all I'll say at this point is that the HNC is what we call a level 4 qualification. The HND is a level 5, and then the BSc is a level 6. So it's basically a 3-year program. Now, some students don't carry on after the HND. They do the HNC and the leigh. You're perfectly free to do that if you want to, or you could carry on and you can optionally do the final year to get your top-up degree as well. So the HND basically is all about 2 things. I've sort of alluded to them. It's your opportunity to just expand your skills in a lot of computing disciplines, and with those disciplines at HND level, you could go on and get yourself employment in the industry. You could do another year and get your BSc Honours Computing with UCLan. You do that at college, so you don't have to go to UCLan. You sit your modules at Wigan and Leigh. But again, I'm not going to dwell on that this afternoon because it's at least a couple of years away for some people, so we'll leave it at that for the time being. So your first year is what we call a common year. What we do is everyone who comes onto the HND in the first year, everyone sits the same modules, and the modules will either be semesterized modules, so anything that you see, for example here, which is labelled as semester 1, you do those September through to January, and then you've got some which are labelled as semester 2, which is January through to June. I don't know whether you're doing semesterized modules now, but I thought I'd explain it. Or you'll get some modules which are run all year, which is September all the way through to May, June time. And the chances are that the majority of those modules, if you've done a level 3 qualification, you've got some experience with them. For example, you've probably done some programming, you've probably done some web development. I know those are already in the level 3. You may have done some networking. So a lot of these modules, you may have done some databases work. But obviously you're doing these at HND level or HNC year 1, and obviously it's the next level up. Some of the modules you might not have come across. We do a maths module in semester 1. If you're a programmer, you need to have the requisite math skills. Professional practice is more about how you work in teams and how you work on collaborative projects. Programming, if any of you are into programming, we teach C#. There's a couple of reasons we do C#. Because we might not have internal applicants from our level, Wigan and Leigh level 3 courses or A levels. They might come from external, so they might come from St Helens or wherever it is. And the thing about that is that we do something that's new to everyone. The second reason is we do C# is if you go on and do the games development module in year 2, we teach something called Unity, and we do that with C#. So you need to make sure that you've got enough programming in C# under your belt to make sure you can do Unity properly. Other things, managing a computing project, that is probably a different one in comparison with all the others, because the project as such is all about project management, and it's given to us by the awarding body. So Pearson, who are the people who award the HNDs, they set the project theme every year and everybody has to do it. So it's not like they mark it, we still mark the work, but the theme is given to us by Pearson BTEC. So everybody does the same computing project and it's marked on the work that you do. I'm trying to think of some of the others. Networking, bog standard networking type stuff, and security, obviously it's dedicated security module. In terms of website development, off the top of my head, HTML, CSS, and we do responsive design as well in that. We're working in Twitter Bootstrap, I think we were working in last year. So that's sort of a typical structure for the first year. Everybody sits a common first year, and obviously if you get everything, pass everything, obviously, and then you can proceed on to the second year. And we do 2 streams, or we're considering 2 streams on the computing program. The first one we've just called the computing stream, because it contains a lot of common practical computing elements. So everybody has to do a research project. It's a core module and it's also worth double the credits, and everybody has to do it. whether you do this stream or the other stream. Everybody has to do business intelligence, which is all about sort of building management information systems that drag information from other places that help people make decisions. We've currently got a robotics module. We also have an Internet of Things module, which is all about building sort of circuits that stream data from sensors and spin it up on the web and things like that. These three are sort of linked, but the main element that people always want to do on this particular stream is the gaming element. So we have a game design module and a game development module. And what the implications of that are is that in the first semester we go through the game design stuff, which is all about doing the game design document and all the stuff that's expected of you as a games designer. But we also do the games development module, which runs all year, which means we get you up to speed in Unity in the first semester while you're coming up with your game design, and then in the second semester you have enough Unity skills to be able to develop a game, a sort of a proper game, really. So we made the decision last year that all game development would be moving to Unity on HE levels. It's not an easy piece of software. Some of you might have experience of it, and it does have quite a long and quite a difficult learning curve. In year 2 you should be experienced enough to appreciate that you'll have C# under your belt, because you'll have done it in the previous year for a year, which means you should be ready for doing some C# in Unity, which is the reason why we left the games till the second year, so you've got enough programming knowledge to be able to do what you're doing. Now there is another stream, which is what we call the network engineering stream, and this one doesn't have the gaming side to it. This is more of a stream that we do with those who are a bit more into the tech side or hardware side, if you think that way. There are some units that are still common. So for example, everyone has to do a research project, everyone has to do business intelligence. The robotics and the IoT are still common, so irrespective of whether you're a computing stream or whether you're a network engineering stream, you have to do those units. But what you find is that if you're into the network engineering side, we have to do more things like network security, transport network design, and things like that. We also now have a new cloud computing unit where students will be working in something called Amazon Web Services, and we do a systems analysis module, which obviously is all about, some of you might have done systems analysis before, so it's very much more Cisco related for the networking side, and there's a bit more on the hardware and networking side and security side for networks. So the two very different streams with some commonality between them, so everybody sits a common first year, and then you're allowed to go between either being a sort of gamer, sort of traditional computing stream, or going down the network engineering stream, but it depends what each one does. It depends what you want to do as well. But 4 out of the units are common, so it doesn't matter which one you do, you are going down one side or the other. Okay, so that's entirely up to you. Either way, we're looking at full-time study for 2 academic years on HND. Next year we're looking at 2 full days per week as your full-time table, and that's looking like first year HND is Monday and Tuesday. Now we've got some people who are first years. I've noticed Lewis here. So obviously the year after, when you've done your second year, that might alter. Alright, so just be mindful of that. There's also a lot of discussion at the minute into some of your online delivery being mixed in with in-college delivery. Now what that means is that, for example, if it's a 2-day week where you are required to come in, let's say on a networking module where you can't really do networking virtually, we will schedule you in for a day in college to do the more practical side of stuff, where you have to wire up networks, configure switches, do all that sort of stuff. And we might do a day a week whereby you're learning virtually. It's still early days, but we're looking at structures around it. So obviously next year might be quite experimental in the way that we do things, but that's certainly the way that we're looking towards doing it. Anyone who's been on a BTEC program before, you pretty much know how you're going to be assessed. It's the same thing. You'll have a number of assignments for every module, and each one's mapped to learning outcomes, and you get assessed through pass, merit and distinction criteria. I'm not going to go into the technicalities of it. RQF BTECs are assessed in a slightly different way for bits of things, but I'm not going to go into that technicality. It's pass, merit, distinction, as you pretty much know about if you've done level 3 before. So, how do you get on? Well, we're looking at 80 UCAS points. Now, if anyone who's watching this is on an access to HE, 80 UCAS points is the equivalent of what I've got down there, which is D6, M18, P21 or above. That will get you exactly 80 UCAS points. Anything above that is a bonus. Anyone who's a current level 3 second year, that means you're on the QCF program, we're looking at MMP. Anyone who's on a level 3 diploma for RQF, so your current level 3 first years, it'll be MMP for you as well. So either way, 80 UCAS points is MMP or above. If we've got anyone who's on access or is externally watching this, we will consider experience and employer references as well, but I must stress the GCSEs as well, because you need to be able to prove, well, you can use a computer, but it's being able to prove that you can read and write. There are reports to write, there are calculations that you've got to do, so we're looking at grade 4s or Cs if you've already got GCSEs in order to sort of cover the maths and English side, so that's quite important. In terms of progression, yeah, I mean, we do have students who do the HND and leave. We do have a lot of students who carry on and do the extra year and get employment as well. We do encourage all our students on HE to carry on to the top up level, because obviously a lot of the higher paid jobs are graduate positions where they need people with a degree qualification. But some of the employment our students have got, for example, software developers, web developers, we've had people start up web development companies in Wigan, they're working quite well. We've had a graduate with, he's got a job now, he travels between Britain and Poland as a database administrator. And we've had 2 graduates who are currently working for Sony in the quality department in Liverpool. So the quality test, well, they were quality testers, I think they're quality managers now. They work for Sony Interactive Entertainment Europe, and they've got the names on games like Horizon Zero Dawn and other games they won't tell me about because they're working on them and they won't tell me any secrets. Obviously after the HND, and I keep going on about that, there's the opportunity to carry on and obviously get your degree with us as well. So, as part of the process of enrolling on HE at the college, every student in their first year is provided with a brand new laptop. There's a couple of reasons for it. One is to make sure that you've got the facilities to do what you need to do on the course. For example, for programming you need Visual Studio. For the networking you need to use Packet Tracer. For the web development you need Notepad++ and Bootstrap Studio. And, you know, second year stuff, you know, you need to install the Arduino software. So in the first year you're given a brand new laptop. That's basically yours to use and carry around with you and take home and work during the entire running of the course, but that laptop still remains the property of the college. On the completion of the HND, that laptop becomes your property, and we get you to sign an agreement for that. If you fail to complete, we want the laptop back. So everyone under what we call the HE Advantage gets a laptop to use for the duration of the course. Under the HE Advantage funding as well, we also buy your Internet of Things kit in the second year, which basically means we buy you an Arduino development kit, which is, if you haven't seen an Arduino, it's like a little development circuit board, and we buy you all the sensors that you need to develop all the work for the Internet of Things module as well. So that gets built for you, that gets bought for you in the second year of the course. Now, if you take into account, in the first year we've bought you a laptop, in the second year we've bought you some development kit, there is some additional money that we have as part of the HE Advantage Fund. It's basically what we do in the first year is we offset any remaining money with a proposed trip. So it's expected in the first year of the HND that we will fund or part fund the trip, and we've been to a few places before. The big one that we try to go to every year is EGX, if you've heard of it, which is Eurogamer Expo. For the past couple of years it's been run in London, it's been at the NEC in Birmingham a couple of times as well. But we've done smaller trips as well to places like Arcade Club, if you've been there before, Bletchley Park, we always do a trip there every year. So there's opportunities where we offset your HE Advantage funding with your laptop and what we call a domestic trip somewhere in the UK. Obviously in the second year we don't buy as much kit for you, but what we're trying to do this year is look at a more substantial international trip. We were, and then the whole COVID thing kicked in, we were at one point looking at a trip to it was a gaming expo in Berlin. We had to cancel it for obvious reasons. We are looking at other trips that we can possibly put into place. We've looked at the World Expo in Dubai. That obviously has been cancelled, so I think that's been put off, so we might have something that runs there. We've also looked at trips to the US and to Japan as well, and obviously when the whole COVID thing calms down, they will be possible trips that we're going to be looking at. So we've got John Darlington looking into some of these trips as we currently speak, so we'll be able to offer those on the second year of the HND. Now, I'm under the impression that everyone at the minute who's watching this is an internal student, and I know that you're currently being asked to produce UCAS personal statements. Now, if it is your intention to just apply for the HND, then you don't necessarily have to apply through UCAS, but you will still need to produce a personal statement, because your personal statement will go on the college application form. You can then fill that in, send it into college, and then we'll deal with that application when it comes in. If you send me an email, and that's my email, Paul Molyneux, I can send you an electronic application form if you want one. If you are considering applying for the HND, but you're also thinking of applying to somewhere else, like your Manchesters, your Liverpools, your Lancasters, or whatever, you can still apply for the HND, but you'll have to put Wigan and Leigh on your UCAS application as well as your other institutions. So if you are just applying for the HND, you can use the college form and just apply on that. We still need a UCAS personal statement, because that will go on as part of your application as well, so it doesn't get you out of writing that. If you are thinking of Wigan and other institutions, then you will have to go through UCAS, but put the Wigan and Leigh HND on your UCAS form as well. Obviously, the only downside to it is now that there is a cost. It currently stands, or it will be for the next cohorts that come through, £7,500 per academic year. So this sort of leads into the next part of this, which is all about how you go on about sort of paying for it. I don't know whether you've been spoken to about student finance or not, but I just want to sort of clear up any situations or things that you might have heard and things that you've read, really to give you an idea of how student finance works, which is sort of the next part of it. Because if you're not aware, it's not an expectation that you walk in on day one with £7,500 in your back pocket. You get financial support from the government to help with the costs of your higher education. You then only repay the amount, or start to repay the amount that you've borrowed for the cost of the course after you've left your course, and you only start paying after you earn so much money. After 30 years, if you've still got any outstanding amount left, it gets written off. And there are other forms of support that you can apply for if you feel that you need it under certain circumstances. I'll sort of talk about that in a minute. So the whole thing is termed as student loans, but I don't personally like the term loan. I like the term sort of student. It's more of a taxation on your education, because it gets taken out of your wages. But there are two types of student loan that are available. There's the tuition fee loan and the maintenance loan. Now, they're both very different, but you apply for them both in the same way. They're not like bank loans. If you have a bank loan, basically you borrow the money from the bank, and obviously you pay it off and things like that, but you start paying it off straight away, as opposed to student loans where you only start making your repayments for the loan from the April after you've left your course. So if you think about that, someone who joins us on HND from September 2020 will go September 20 to 21, year 2 is 21-22, and the April after you've left your course will be April 2023. So you only start to pay that money back after you've left the course, and you only start making payments if you're earning over a certain amount of money, and banks won't do that. Banks will want the money straight away. Yeah, so that's where it's sort of slightly different. In terms of additional support, anyone with a disability can apply for disabled students allowance. If you have financial dependents like your children or you're a carer, you can apply for additional support as well. The third one doesn't really apply to computing students, but if you're a nurse or working in health profession courses, you can apply for additional money on that as well. So basically, one thing I did want to bring to your attention is the fact that our fees are £7,500 a year, but the university approved government costs are £9,250. Now, what we've basically done is we've got the ability to charge less, and the fact is that our courses are just the same as a nationally approved high national diploma that you would sit anywhere else, but we do charge less funding for our course than anyone else. But you will be able, or you will, unless you have got £7,500, you will be required to apply for a loan to cover your tuition fees, because it will be effectively your first degree, and it's a requirement that you apply. And your tuition fees go directly to college. You don't get to see that tuition fee. You basically apply, and the tuition fees come from the company, the student loans company, which is what they're called. And what they do is they give the money to college in 3 batches. So you never see that money, but you will end up paying it back at some point. So what you do is, and anyone who's thinking of applying, not this year, but next year, if you're applying for entry in September 2021, you won't need to do this until next February. Anyone who's thinking of applying and joining us in September, you need to get on this now. You need to go to gov.uk/student finance, and you need to put your application in. It's quite a big online application system. You need to declare things like how much money household income's coming in, and how much money your mum earns, and how much your dad earns, or whatever, individual circumstances. But once that tuition fee money is paid to college, you won't start paying any of that back until the April after you finish the course. And you won't start making payments unless you are earning over £25,725 a year, or £2,000 a month, or £500 a week. So what will happen is that they will take that money directly out of your wages, but you have to be earning over that amount per year. So that's the fees bit in terms of paying for your course. There's also maintenance loan. The maintenance loan is like your living cost loan. It covers things like books, if you need to buy any specialist equipment. I mean, you don't need to buy a laptop with it because you're already getting one given, but you can use it for things like other living costs as well. Now that money you will see. That is what you apply for, that will help you for living costs while you're on the course. That is paid into your bank account in 3 instalments. You get one in end of September, one in January, and you get one around April, May time. And basically you have to budget that money in order to make sure that you've got enough to last you through. Now obviously it depends on your individual circumstances as to how much you get. I would suspect everybody in the room here will be a student who is living at home with parents. So the maximum that you would get per year in terms of your maintenance loan will be £7,747. That obviously is dependent on how much money is coming into the household. I'll show you that in a minute. I don't suspect people, well, you certainly won't be going anywhere near London, and you certainly won't be going overseas. But if you are thinking of living away from home and studying outside London, you are entitled to a bit more. So let's say you're living on your own, or you're living in your own flat or something like that, then based on your circumstances you do get a bit more money. How much do you get? Well, if you are someone that's living in sort of your own place, so you're outside London and living away from a parental home, the amount that you'll be able to borrow is dependent on how much household income's coming in. So obviously if it's your sole amount of money that you'll be bringing in, you'll be entitled to about £9,203. If the income goes up, the amount that you're entitled to is a lot less. Right up to someone earning over £62,000 a year, then you get only £4,000. I would suspect the majority of people in the room at the minute, you will be living with your parents at home, so the household income is taken into account as to how much you would get for a maintenance loan, in which case £25,000 a year or less household income will bring you £7,747 per year, split into 3 chunks, compared to someone on household income of £50,000, we are entitled to 4,484 split over 3 payments. So it's all dependent on the household income that's coming in, is what you get for maintenance loan. So remember that your fees loan and your maintenance loan are sort of lumped together, but the fees loan you never see, the maintenance loan gets paid into your bank account. So you got to pay it back at some point, okay? For repaying it, your fees and maintenance loans are combined together. You only start making repayments from the April after you finish the course. So that's after you finish the HND after 2 years. If you're earning above £25,725 a year, then they will start to take your student loan payments out of your wages. If your payment is, or if your wages are below that, then you don't make any payments. Okay? How much you pay is obviously dependent on how much money you're earning. So we need to have a look at that. Now what happens is let's say we've got a typical person and they're earning £27,725 a year. You only pay an amount which is equivalent to the money that's earned above your threshold. So if you earn 25725, that's your threshold there. But if you're earning 27, the additional amount on top of that, you only pay 9% on top of the amount over that £25,000. You don't pay 9% on the whole thing, or you'd be paying a lot more. So what happens is that it's the equivalent of paying about £15 a month based on wages of about £27,000 a year. So it's £15 a month that's coming out of your wages. Compared with somebody else who's earning about £33,000, the same applies to them. You wouldn't be expected to pay anything up to the limit of 25725, but they will calculate 9% on the £8,000 over that, which means you'll pay about £60 a month. So the more you earn, the more you pay back. Right? It's quite typical. You are earning interest. Anything that you borrow earns interest anyway. You borrow money, you get interest. You have to pay on that. So as soon as you've enrolled, the money that you've borrowed is interest is being developed on that, and that'll carry on, and that carries on through your course and through the life that you lead after that, up to the point where you start paying it back in some shape or form. While you're studying, the rate is 5.4%. It's the retail price index, I'm not going to go into that now, plus another 3%. After you've left the course, it depends on how much you're earning as to how much interest you pay. So it could be your RPI, which is 3% interest, up to 47, which is 2.4 plus 3, which again is 5%, and anything above that goes on a sliding scale. But if you're earning over £46,000, you're not doing so bad. Now, the questions that we always tend to get after this: what if your payments, what if your earnings drop below the threshold while you're working? If your payments, if your earnings drop, your payments stop. So if your earnings, average earnings drop from 25 to 21, you don't pay out your wages. What might happen is that it will still keep earning the interest, but your repayments are paused because the money you're earning is below the threshold. What if you get made redundant? There's a lot of redundancies flying around at the minute, particularly with COVID and all that. If you stop work, your payments stop as well, until in both cases they go over that threshold, you start paying again. Anything after 30 years, then any outstanding balance is basically written off regardless. So again, we've got 11 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got about 6 people who've signed in. Anyone who has made an application for entry into September this year, the hope is that you've already made your student finance application. If you weren't considering applying for HND and you've come here just to find out what's going on, and now you are interested in HND, then you will have to apply. You'll have to send me an email and watch this stream again. Emails in the stream, but you will have to apply for student finance. It's a little bit on the late side, but don't worry. You'll just have to make sure that you apply, and then you apply online, put your details in, and then make sure that your loan's in place for when your course starts. Because the important thing is that when you come in to enrol, you've got the evidence that your student finance is in place, and there have been times where there have been delays, so you do need to make yourself aware that there have been delays in the system, but you tend not to need to panic. It tends to sort itself out. We have had students waiting into sort of like October time and there's been no money turned up, and they're panicking because they think they're going to get thrown off the course. It's not the case. It's just that we have to make sure that your student finance is in place. But anyone who's in the room now who's a level 3 year 1, Lewis Corcoran, and they're considering the HND, your first priority is your personal statement. Your next priority is to apply, and anyone from second year who's not thought about applying, you will have to apply as well. And we could consider your application for entry September 2021, and obviously then we sort of like consider that, and we'll consider you for that, and you can worry about your finance when it opens for you lot, which will be next February or something like that. So yeah, plenty to think about in terms of the finance side. Now, I'm fully aware that there's a text window. I have literally been talking to you for nearly 50 minutes, which is like not me at all. But if anybody's got any questions that they want to ask, by all means stick it in the chat window, and then we can have a chat about it with everybody else, because the chances are if you've got a question, someone else will probably want to know the answer to that question as well. So I'm going to stick around for the next few minutes. I'll answer any questions if anybody's got them. That's in relation to the course and in relation to the student finance, and I'll answer those questions as best I can. Right, so we've had a question off Luke. If we've applied for the course already, how do we check whether we've been accepted or not? Okay, I'm going to assume, Luke, that if obviously you've finished your course. I'm assuming you've finished your course and you've done all the work and stuff, and I know we've got a situation at the minute where people are working on estimated grades and things like that, so we can't accept you onto the course till we know what your grades are. So as it currently stands, The only thing, and I'm not 100% sure, it might be John Darlington might be the best person to speak to about this, because obviously he's the level 3 manager, but my thinking is that the final grades are going to be released shortly, which will give someone like me a better idea of what your final grades are in terms of getting onto the course. So as it currently stands, if you've done everything that you need to do, and hopefully you've passed it, and obviously the big one for me is that you've met the entry requirements and you've got the GCSE qualifications, which is important as well, then obviously if you've met those criteria, then you will gladly accept you onto the course. The problem that we've got at the minute, and this is where the whole COVID thing comes in, is that we don't know what your final grades are going to be until the whole process of the grades have been processed, they've been sent to BTEC, and then we get those back from BTEC. Now, I'm under the impression, and I might be wrong, the caveat is I might be wrong, that it's going to be early August before we find out what those final grades are, in which case once we find out what they are, we then have the ability to contact students and say, yeah, we've got those grades, and this is how we can move on for it. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, what I'm going to do then is, we're getting on for 55 minutes now. Anyone who wants to get a copy of the college application form, if you find it where it is, and I can't remember where it is, it's the one with my email address on it. I think it's back here. Yeah, my email address is there. If you want a copy of the college application form, by all means send me an email and I will send you an electronic version as an attachment, and that includes anyone who hasn't applied in year 2 who wants to apply for this September 2020. If you still want a copy of it and you want to sort of apply for 2021, so anyone who's level first year, then by all means you can still use the same form, but obviously just make it really implicit that you're applying for 2021 rather than this September. But I'll leave that on for a couple of minutes if you want to take that down, that email address, and you can send me an email and I'll get a copy of that form out to you. Failing that, thanks very much for listening. And like I say, I'll stick around for a few more minutes. I've been on 56 minutes, so I'll give it another 5 minutes in case anyone's got any other questions. Otherwise, thanks for listening, and hopefully I'll see you on the HND.